ultimately Rangers need to go and get a top manager. Does it really matter whether they've been at the club before? I wrote a column last week or the week before for the Daily Record saying when the new owners get round to discussing names, one of the names they should be discussing is Brendan Rodgers. And I kind of said that obviously flippantly because the next manager at Rangers has to be able to compete with Brendan Rodgers. He's a top level elite manager as he's proven in England and Scotland. So whoever Rangers get, for me, they have to be at a certain level. They have to be good enough to go in and compete with Rodgers. It doesn't really matter whether they've been there before or not.
Aye, we've got comments coming in thick and fast. If you want to let us know your opinions, please do in the comments section below. Let me throw a couple of these at you, Swanee. First of all, this is right out of order for William. He says, "No surprise, Swanee can't afford a holiday with the tips he gives." That's a bit harsh. That's bang out of order, isn't it? That's. Tell you what, William.
Why do you think I can't even afford wallpaper?
William, I was going to block you there. I'll think about it. Back onto Rangers. Rangers of the UK says, Gerrard's a non-starter. The thought of Beale come back with him would knock me sick. Get the feel the 49ers want a big name and someone who can deal with Glasgow and the madness. No idea who, though. He also says it would rule out Kevin Muscat as well. This one I thought was quite interesting, if I can find it. Andy says, I like the idea of a clean break and a fresh start. I honestly think Gerrard would, at the very least, bring the fight and passion back to Ibrox. This one says, it's going to be Marco Rose. If not him, why not the special one? And that brings me, Swanee, to the actual odds I've taken. A little snip of the odds. This is from this afternoon. Gerrard, as Scott says, is actually still favourite, but Marco Rose in there behind 72. Barry Ferguson out to 21, obviously. It's quite interesting. I mean, I was going to say, who do you see being the Rangers manager? That's a bit of a loaded question, but how do you read the situation?
Well, first of all, according to William, I shouldn't be put anywhere near betting on. That's like putting water beside a gremlin, so forget that. Just to go back to the thing Scott was talking about and what you guys have touched on earlier, I think there's far too much stock put in these things about connections and past connections. It's all about the individual. I'll ask you a question. What connection did Ange Postecoglou have with Scottish football before he came to Celtic? Wim Janssen, Dick Advocaat, Steven Gerrard never had any the first time around. So these things, it's all about the individual. They've got to select the right individual. That is the key. And I don't think it should be brushed on, or he's got a connection, or he's not, a fresh break, or whatever. It's just got to be identifying the right guy, as Scott says, someone who can come in and compete against Brendan Rodgers. And it's what is quite interesting is we keep saying compete against Brendan Rodgers. The Rangers managers this season who competed directly with Brendan Rodgers got more points than him.
Aye, that's a good point.
It's dealing with the other teams. It's more dealing with your own squad and having them up and ready to go.
But it's dealing with Rodgers in the sense, Swanee, that Rodgers gets Celtic with that relentless consistency.
I know what you mean, and that is the thing I was just saying. Is getting through to your own team and making them like Rodgers' Celtic team, that they compete all the time and they're 99.9% of the time they have their off days like everybody else. But yeah, I think there's far too much store put in these things about he's connected to the club and that kind of thing, and he's not. Got to be a fresh break. You've just got to find the right guy.
And listen, Swanee's 100% right. It is about the individual. But with a new ownership coming in and a new sporting director, it also depends on what direction Rangers want to go in terms of playing style and all that. I mean, I hate getting caught up in playing styles, but with a new start, a new era, I feel like there has to be some kind of direction. There has to be some alignment. For the board, to the sport, for the owners, the board, the sporting director, to the manager, they all have to be on the same page. So, for instance, if you go and get a Sean Dyche, you're probably you've decided what kind of route you want to go down. Probably means more, maybe short-term success, trying to claw Celtic back next season, try and get a title or a trophy win. Or do you go for like a Terdich or something for ex-Dortmund or whatever, who you would think would be a totally different style of play, probably with a lot of younger players. That would maybe be more long-term for me, where you put you try and implement a style, but it might take kind of 2 or 3 years to get it perfect. So it has got to be about the individual, but it's also about what these guys coming in. It's about what road they want to get done with a manager. So they're going to need to be very specific, and Swanee says that they need to get it right, obviously.
But you can do it quickly, Scott. I mean, I hate to keep going back to the same name all the time, Postecoglou.
Yep.
But that style of football Postecoglou introduced, that 100 miles an hour, fast-paced football, he introduced that almost from the outset. Now, he didn't quite have the pieces in place after just one transfer window, but near enough. Yep. By the time he got through his second transfer window in January, he'd added Maeda, Matt O'Reilly, Hatate, Leela Bada, Kyogo, these guys. Celtic were playing. Celtic, I think, just after that transfer window closed, played Rangers on a Tuesday or Wednesday night at Celtic Park, the night the league kind of turned.
3-0 game.
The Rangers away in half an hour with a pace of football that we hadn't seen in the Scottish game for a long time. Even when Brendan Rodgers, his Invincibles were quite dominant, but there was a lot of possession-based stuff. They did play some fast-paced football. I mean, that is a myth to say they were. They did play some slick football at times, but this was something we hadn't seen before. They were outstanding, and that was implemented in the space of, I'd say, Postecoglou pretty much had that style implemented within 6 to 8 weeks. It just wasn't working properly because he didn't have all the pieces in place. But once all the pieces were in place, it happened quickly. So you could say that's a bit of a one-off, and normally it would take longer than that. I would understand if anybody wanted to make that argument to me, because it's very difficult for people to do it in a fast space of time, and Postecoglou managed it. But it just goes to show it can be done. And it goes back to what Scott says. If you identify the guy and he's got a blueprint, they're going to have to go with him, back him. And, Celtic gave Ange Postecoglou £4 million for a 19-year-old that had barely played many first-team games in Israel. But he trusted him. Leela Bada, and look what they got out of it.
Right.
So
I was about to say, Swanee, that's the key thing about when you look at the Postecoglou blueprint, if you like, but you still need things to go. You need to do certain things. You need certain things to go your way. First of all, you need a wee bit of money to spend. We're thinking the takeover is going to give Rangers a wee bit of money. We're not sure how much yet. Might not be as much as what people think, but you need to spend a wee bit of money. Also, you need to get your recruitment pretty much bang on.
It needs to be. Postecoglou's was pretty much.
Apart from James McCarthy, or do you know what I mean? I mean, I can't think
pretty much all of them were bang on.
Exactly. I mean, and by the way, not just bang on, hit the ground running immediately.
They actually started to get progressively worse. Your Marco Tilios and guys like that. But the original first batch that came in, all were sensational from the outset, right away. They were really good.
And we're sold or will be sold for a huge profit as well.
Huge profit.
So you bring Kyogo in for Japan, he just hits the ground running immediately. Bring Matt O'Reilly in for MK Dons, a totally different level. Bang, immediately. I mean,
and he wasn't even the first choice. Remember Riley McGree, who went to Middlesbrough?
Right.
Jota out of Benfica's B team.
We actually look back to that transfer window in particular, or the two transfer windows Ange had. That set Celtic up for years, really.